I read 15 books in 23 minutes and it revitalized my teaching career. Stay tuned so I can tell you how I did it, and as I talk about spiral bound, form and function, and working knowledge from book 15, which is this book right here, Dunham Technique, A Way of Life. And some of you might be wondering why I'm showing you a spiral bound book, but we're going to get into that too, so just wait around for that. Welcome back to 23-minute reads with me, Maya D. This is kind of my accountability vlog because in these videos, I share with you my takeaways from my current book, which is 15 of my 23 to 23 challenge, where I'm reading 23 minutes per day, every day as an act of self-love, as an investment into myself, and as a way of providing myself with some consistency in an ever-changing world. Hoping that you will join me along in this journey by reading along with me, subscribing to the channel, and certainly leaving comments down there in that comment section so there's an actual dialogue going on. Having in mind that while I have several decades of experience as a dancer, an educator, and a curriculum writer, I'm not the know-all be-all for this book right here. I'm simply providing a space for dialogue. Well, this week I read pages, let me look at my notes, the forward to page 34 of this book. And my takeaways are spiral bound, form and function, and working knowledge. Now, I am someone that loves to support small businesses and creators. So it's important to me, or not so, and it is important to me that I am obtaining those things in a respectful, verified way. And that's why takeaway number 1 is spiral bound. So some of you might be wondering, why do I have a spiral bound version of a book that was created in the 1990s? Well, I'm going to answer that. I actually received my copy in 2019 while I was attending the Dunham Technique conference. And I add that to say that I did receive it in a respectful way and through a respectful, verified channel, which was quite a blessing because in my research, I found that getting a copy of this book can be a bit of a challenge. And as I was reading the book, the foreword specifically, it speaks about observation, it speaks about inscription and preservation of the legacy of Dunham. And all of those things are important reasons to have this book, because this book is the tangible thing that speaks of that inscription, that preservation of the legacy. So if you have a respectful, verified way to get this book, I strongly encourage you to do it. And I also strongly warmly encourage you to drop your questions, your ideas in that comment section, so that either I or someone knowledgeable about Dunham Technique, about Dunham history, can offer that response and that we can all grow together. As I step into takeaway number 2, which is form and function. Form and function was a term that I was actually introduced to at the Dunham conference. But in chapter 1, the history of the technique, I learned that Dr. Herkovitz introduced Dunham to this term during her academic studies. So for some of you who are new to Dunham Technique, and more specifically Katherine Dunham actually did have her doctorate in anthropological studies. On page 7, we find these words, and I quote, "Form representing the style and the shape of the movement as a dance, and function representing the need for the dance, what the movement means, and what is its significance." End quote. Reading this explanation stood out as a method of encouraging embodiment as I am instructing my students in my movement courses, but also as a way to encourage retention of the content for non-dance majors in some of my dance history courses. So what does that mean? That means explaining how the movement developed, where it developed from, giving a story, right? Sometimes giving that story behind the movement and showing how it is an extension of this movement symbolizes or comes from cutting or from hunting or so forth allows people to understand movers to understand where the weight is applied. So how to execute it, but also for those non-dancers, having that story is a great way of them remembering the content, right? So I might not perform it, but I can remember that this movement is associated with X, Y, and Z. So form and function, a wonderful technique for encouraging embodiment and the retention of new content. Takeaway number 3 is working knowledge. I feel like this aligns with that previous takeaway, which is form and function. On page 23, we find these words, and I quote, "A working knowledge about the historical and cultural development of the dance styles," end quote. In this section, it goes on to explain that a Dunham teacher needs not only to have experience during the dance, but also be able to demonstrate it and articulate it. Now, honestly, I think this stood out to me because of my own teaching pedagogy and praxis. I only teach forms that I've studied. So I only teach forms that I've done intense studying over a duration of time that usually equates to more than a year. And for that means having a 1-day professional development workshop, while it builds awareness, doesn't necessarily feel like I then have working knowledge and am able to teach this content. It doesn't give me enough lived experience to have working knowledge that allows me to teach others, because that 1-day professional development or even a week of learning a new technique doesn't give me enough intimate knowledge, enough lived experience to answer questions that might come up from students. So this idea of having working knowledge, being able to talk about the history of it, to demonstrate it, and to articulate it kind of already aligns with my pedagogy and teaching practice. But what say you? How do you know when you are ready to teach a specific dance form? How do you know? Is there a specific amount of time or some other mark of space and experience that tells you you are ready to teach a dance form? Let me know in the comments below. And you can also drop the title of a book. Like, is there a great book that you want to suggest? Drop that. Ooh, almost dropped my notes. Drop that in the comments below, because I'm always looking for a book to read. You can also just drop a book emoji so that I know that you're here with me. This has been 23-Minute Reads with me, Maya D. Remember to like, share, and subscribe if you liked this video or found it interesting in any other kind of way. Stay blessed, spread a good word, and I'll see you again next time. Take care.